Welcome to episode 2 of Behind the Grind, the YouTube and podcast series that explores stories of the personal side of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Julianne Q, and in each episode, I'll be sitting down with a different entrepreneur for an honest conversation about their path to success. Today's guest has a story I've been wanting to follow up on for a while now. When I first met Ben Glassco, he was the co-founder of a bustling Vancouver startup, Enroot Meals on Demand. This startup offered healthy, affordable meals delivered via courier to your nearest curbside and was an instant hit among busy urban professionals. Under Ben's leadership, Enroot would gross over $1 million in revenue in its first year, and by all accounts was poised to continue on the up and up. So you can imagine my surprise then when in October 2017, instead of continuing his upward trajectory, Ben decided to give it all up. He said goodbye to his company and bought a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia. There, he would spend the next 8 months on a motorcycle, mastering a new craft. Today, Ben is an award-winning travel and landscape photographer with a body of work unlike anything that you've ever seen. He spends his days now living his dream, traveling the world in the purest pursuit of his art. So, what really inspired Ben's drastic leap of faith? What happened in his 8 months in Southeast Asia, and what does he want us all to know about it? All of this on today's episode of Behind the Grind. But let's bring it back to the very beginning so people can get a better understanding of who you are. I know you did a degree in political science. We talked about this.
Yeah.
UBC.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did political science.
That's what I did too.
Yeah.
And then from then on, what happened? How did you get involved in the startup world?
I think I spent most of my 20s, like every Bachelor of Arts student, trying to poke at different career paths and just the beginnings of it, trying to feel out if that was the right thing for me. And, I think I tried my hand at, I took the LSATs. I think, did you as well? I think, yeah, and like,
oh gosh.
I think almost everyone that's degree the LSAT. I tried to take my CSC, which is like in finance, and then I had a bit of a career in sales, like corporate sales, and I think that's how I got into Enroot. Was I was kind of recruited by those triplet guys to help them with become a founder of this company and build the sales up. And political science, I think, is like, it's one of those degrees that most people go into it, they're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be really smart and studious in college.
Become a lawyer, and then who knows?
And then you realize it's useless in the real world.
But you know what I appreciated though? Because like you, I also went to school for political science. Although I don't really apply the knowledge that I learned, it has taught me how to learn. But I don't necessarily know if that program taught me or whether I went in with the propensity to sort of figure things out along the way.
Well, there's a lot of important lessons that you get from university. I mean, I think one of the most important things is that you're networking with like-minded people, with like people who have had enough ambition to get themselves to that level. And then when you're amongst other people, you also can feel out the type of people you're going to be working with in the future. Like, for instance, political science for me, I hated my fellow classmates. Like, they were all like just really, really into politics and like local politics and like petty stuff. Like, did you hear what the NDP said today about the Liberals and all this stuff? And I'm kind of more of a big picture person. And so I realized that I don't know if law school is going to be what I want it to be, because it's all full of political science students. And I gravitated definitely more towards the business crowd and like the salesy type of people who are just a little more easygoing and business minded.
I would imagine you had to learn along the way when you came out and you started working in business. You didn't have a degree in business. Do you think ultimately that was an advantage for you?
I think that's a really good question, because a lot of people who are in business don't have a business degree. And I feel like it was more difficult for me, and it still remains like that. Now I'm running my own business, and every day I find a new obstacle or something new that I need to learn.
Yeah.
And I often wish that I took a business degree, because I feel like it would give me a little bit of a leg up. But honestly, I think like anything in this world and in this new generation coming up, Gen Z, like they're realizing that university degrees might not be as useful as they used to be because of the online resources we have.
Right. Isn't it so interesting that you feel like you're lacking in business acumen, but yet you led a startup to make over $1 million in sales in its first year?
I was one of many pieces of that. I cannot take credit for the initial success of Enroot. It really was a team effort. I mean, the boys, the triplet guys, they were amazing. I mean, they each had their own strength that they brought to the table. And my very narrow strength was sales and marketing and online marketing. So I brought that to the table, and my department was successful. So I was happy about that. And but really, I wouldn't be able to do any of that without them. Like, I don't know anything about finance. I don't know anything about, you know, the backside, the tech that we built. That was all Simon. He's like a genius in that. So
Right.
I think that's what really comes down to, and you hear it all the time in the business world, is like surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, and you can't do it all on your own. And I find that with a lot of creatives like myself, I struggle these days because I have to do everything myself now,
Right.
running my own business, and sometimes I have to bring in people who are really good, like a producer or something for a larger project. And I realize that how precious, and I miss how useful really smart friends and coworkers can be. So don't ever go out there and try and do it yourself,
Burn
right?
bridges.
Yeah, like just always be open to collaborations, because
Right.
you can't do everything.
That's true. It's interesting because I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I sense that you're a really intuitive person. I also identify as an intuitive person, and I think in business that is a huge advantage. Yes, maybe going into the business world without a business degree, you lack the vocabulary to speak the same language as everybody else. But I think in the long run, like as you're figuring it out as you go, I think in the long run, we're going to be we're going to be stronger
Yeah,
at this.
yeah.
Like I have no doubt about that.
I'm amazed by how many people, like in the crew around us, they're also like amazing business people and entrepreneurs, creatives. Like I'm always amazed by how young everyone is that I end up working with in Vancouver. I'm like, where are all the Generation Xers? Where are all the boomers like that I'm working with? It seems like all the entrepreneurs, all these business owners, they're all under 40 years old. So I'm always amazed by how quickly people have been able to teach themselves things and to kind of find their way through this crazy world
Yeah.
of business. But I think we've done a pretty good job so far. But honestly, we have so much to learn,
Right.
and there's so many mistakes that I'm waiting to make. In stride,
Right.
and to learn along the way, because
So, take me back to Enroot. You were crushing your department. It was going well. Why did you leave?
yeah.
For
So
something so, like, it's not like you left for another job. You left for a completely different life path.
I did. And I think it comes back to the fact that my founders, my co-founders, it was their baby. They're food guys. They're tech guys. I'm like kind of like a creative salesperson. And ultimately, it wasn't my baby in the end. And the original kind of like agreement we came to is like, Ben, we need you to help us get this off the ground. And I did that. And we were doing well. So, and what had really happened, and now we can talk honestly about what it's like to work in the startup world, to work with entrepreneurs in such high pressure, is that you begin to really wear down. If you can't manage your time properly, your reasons for doing something are, you hold on to them, but it becomes very difficult. So we were working our butts off. Like we all put in so many hours. It was coming down to like, I think it would start the day, because we would open our kitchen at 6 and we'd start making. I was there at like 6:37, And we just worked so hard. It was in that environment, you usually have everyone kind of working together. So sometimes I would be taken out of my office to go help get the cars going or something, because every day in a new business you have something go wrong. So those days, they became one after the other. They were, it was like around 6:37 start, and usually I'd be done by 7 every day. So it was 12-hour days on the regular, and then into the weekends. So like we would also be doing being open on the weekends for certain private clients. And it was just grinding down on me. It wasn't my original baby. It was I was still kind of supporting somebody else's dream. And although we were doing well and we were making good sales, I was exhausted. And I was 28, 29, and I was feeling it. Like I was like, did I see myself, running somebody else's dream at this age? I'm almost 30 years old. I want to be a creative. I want to be a travel photographer. Why am I not doing this?
Did you know that going into Enroot? It
was almost part of the reason why I was involved. I was doing the original creative content with them. Like I was the photographer, so I created like a lot of the images and a lot of the videos and everything, because I had some of that background and I had some experience. But ultimately, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a full-time photographer. And it was kind of like this embarrassing dream that I had for myself, like, and then at night I would sit there and I would scroll through Instagram, and I would think, like maybe one day I can travel the world and be a photographer. And I thought, but no, it's not realistic.
Why is it embarrassing?
I don't know, because it just felt like such a dream to me. Like, and I didn't have any friends who were in this industry that I could really look to and say, oh, well, that's what you do. I had like one or two, and I was even just afraid to even talk to them, because they would feel like I'm such an amateur. I think a lot of entrepreneurs experience that. They don't know where to start.
Right.
And it came down to the point where I was just grinding. And my partner, whom I'm still with, Faye, she was feeling it too. She was like, I barely get to see you. Like, is Enroot really worth it? But really, it came down to one day where she basically like dared me. I was talking about my dream of riding a motorcycle, and she's like, okay, Ben, when are you actually gonna do this motorcycle thing? Like, she's really frank, and like she just cuts through the bullshit. She's like, are you actually ever gonna do this? And I said, you know what? Yes, I'm gonna do this. I need to do this. I'm gonna quit. I've done my job at Enroot. It's time to go and build my dream.
Right.
And she's like, are you serious? Wait a second. And I was like, yeah, I'll just do it. Next month, I'll clean everything up. I'll get everything done, and I'll hand off all the responsibilities to, my sales team, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do this motorcycle thing. She's like, oh shit. Like, I just dared him into like going into this crazy journey. And so that's what I did. I wrapped things up on Enroot. Everything was very amicable. Like, I mean, the team there, they always knew this is where like I would end up going, right? They knew there was just like rented time with me, and that eventually I would come to my senses and chase my personal dream. Yeah.
I wonder what that thought process was like. Like, if I could generalize, like, what does it? So it sounds to me like you just got to a point where you couldn't take more of the same anymore. You just could not take another day of it, and then you're like,
oh, it wasn't like, the life on Enroot, it was exhausting, but it was so rewarding. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can like feel that. They can empathize. Yeah. Like it's extremely rewarding every day. Like, and we would work with other companies, I would be introduced to somebody new, and they would say, oh, what do you do? And I say, I work for one company called Enroot. And they'd be like, oh my God, I love their food. And that was just the most amazing feeling. So there were so many perks to starting a business with my friends like that and have it blow up so quickly. But it came down to my personal journey and almost my fear of getting old. Like, I was 28, 29, I was almost 30, and I had not started my personal career,
right,
my own dream. And I was like, I think my time is up. I need to start now.
Right.
So I think it was just more of a time constraint, and stop procrastinating, stop thinking about doing it, stop planning to do it, and just do it. You're never going to figure it out. You're never going to have a plan.
You're never going to be 100% ready for anything.
Just begin it today.
Yeah.
And it's like one of my favorite quotes I share with my sister. It's like, begin it today. And that's how you get things done, is you stop thinking about it and you just do it, even if you don't know what you're doing. So the rest is history. I went and did it. I did the 8 months. And when I got back, people started to hire me for photography gigs. So it worked.
What were you like those 8 months on the road? Were you by yourself most of the time?
The 100% I was solo. I'm actually wearing the same jeans. These are my like motorcycle jeans that I had. They're falling apart. I look like such a hipster in these.
Can we pan in on the
No. But yeah, they're falling apart, but I'm never gonna get rid of these jeans because they protect me. I got in a motorcycle accident like immediately. Like everyone who I met announced what I was doing. I said I'm gonna go and buy a motorcycle in Vietnam, and I'm gonna make my way over to India and Sri Lanka, and it's gonna take like 6 to 8 months. And everyone's like, "You're gonna die." And I was like, "No, I'm fine. I'll figure it out. Like this is what I wanted to do. I have the drive. I'm ready to do it." So yeah, I sold a lot of my things, and I tried to like downgrade and bring as much of my savings up as possible so I can afford this long journey. And I bought a 5D Mark IV. These guys know the kind of equipment. I wish I could have got a 1D. That'd be nice. It's a type of camera, and so I went on this journey, and I was alone for most of the time. Everyone said, "You're not gonna make it. You're gonna die." They were right. Within a week, I got hit by a truck, and I was in a hospital in the northern border of Vietnam near China. I survived. It was funny. I just broke my shoulder, and it's a long story.
I'm sure it wasn't funny at the time. I think now looking back, because we know how that story unfolded and how it turned out, and the fact that you're sitting next to me right now means nothing. You didn't die on
No.
the journey.
It is a dangerous journey, though. I wouldn't suggest it to any person. I would suggest if you're going to be riding a motorcycle anywhere in the world, is wear full gear, which is what I did. I had knee pads on, and I had elbow pads and a full helmet, so I was able to survive that accident. But it was kind of like a christening, like right off the bat. It's like, "Oh, Ben, you think you're going to do this? Bam! Here we go." So I felt like I was ready to go after that. Like I was on the brink of just quitting right away, because I was like, this is way more dangerous than I ever could have expected. And I can't really explain it to anyone who hasn't been to Vietnam specifically. Like Vietnam is, I think, one of the most dangerous places in the world to drive. Worse than like India or anywhere like that. So don't do it if you don't have to. But it caught the attention of people, and that was kind of the purpose of it, is this whole like attention grabbing journey, and people seemed to notice what I was doing, and I got a somewhat of a following on social media, and so
I think part of them really liked the idea of living vicariously through you. So yeah, from your perspective, it sounds like you were just trying to get people's attention, but the fact that they gave you their attention means you were doing something interesting.
I think it's a dream for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing that a lot of, I think, travel photographers do, like the van lifers, things like that. I sold it all and I ran away. It's kind of that, like, everyone feels it when they're in the corporate grind, and when they're making a life for themselves. They wake up, they basically, the first thing you do when you wake up is you stare at a screen, and then you get on the bus, you stare at a screen. What do you do when you get to work? You stare at a screen.
Yeah.
And then you get home just so you can stare at your big screen before you go to bed and stare at your little screen again. So you're always just looking outwards. You're never looking at your own life. And that's the reality for most people, was the reality for me for years.
Have you heard of the girl the 20-year-old who got 3 million subscribers within like her first 3 weeks on YouTube or something?
Oh my God.
She calls herself the van girl.
Oh,
and she makes videos about living in a van.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's, I don't know.
And there are huge conspiracy theories on the internet about how she got there. Like, there are lots of theories about her being a YouTube plant, but they have, for the most part, been debunked. And could it actually be true that people are just interested in living in a van and like living a life without limits or boundaries.
It's a romantic
Borders.
notion, and it's like a fantasy thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people buy into is, I mean, what I was doing was just a personal dream of mine since I was a kid. Like I remember when I was like 10, I would always talk about riding a bicycle across Canada. And then as I got older, I thought a little bit bigger, and I still want to do another journey. I do like the idea of this on the road, a new place every day. It is a little bit of a romantic notion to me. But for most people, I think it's a bit of an escape. Like they want, I don't think that I don't think she's fake at all. I think she's definitely like real. Like people, she just is living in her van. She's just really good at photography, and I think from recall, she's very beautiful. So she's kind of like that Instagram model. Yeah, that always helps. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all that she gained all those followers. I think she was just at the right time, at the right moment. It's like hitting its peak of popularity, this van life stuff. Mm-hmm. But ultimately what it boils down to is just people, they need an escape. They want to live vicariously through something, mm-hmm. and they'll eat it up. Mm-hmm. Because they can put themselves in that situation. If you're a relatable person, if you're relatively normal, and then you're doing this thing, then people really, it resonates with them.
Right. So take me back to your first accident in Vietnam and how you, from what I understand, I mean, and from what I can imagine, you had a total like reality check almost.
Yeah.
How did you like find it in yourself to continue as opposed to give up? Because I don't think anyone would have blamed you if you had just decided to.
I think everyone expected me to give
Yeah.
up. Like I was able, I don't even like to show this video over because I think like I got hit and I like blew up, like, and I look so weird in it. Like I had just come out of the accident and I like took my helmet off and I did like, I was like, I need to record what just happened. And like my whole body like inflamed. So I look really weird in it and I don't share it that often, but it's like a very real moment where I was driving. I thought I would do the northern loop of Vietnam just like as a practice run. Mm-hmm. It's called the Ha Giang Loop, and it's a very, very beautiful, extremely dramatic and rugged mountain pass that it takes about 3 or 4 days to complete. And I thought, oh, that sounds like a good warm up. And I'm so dumb for thinking that would be easy. And so I bought the motorcycle and I strapped in and I had everything ready. And then, you know, I did buy a proper helmet. And then I think it was like second day riding, I was totally hit by a truck. What actually happened is like one truck came at me and blocked my path from another truck, and I slammed into the back of it and spun out. And then I got up, and if you've ever been to Vietnam, the highways are just the worst. It's not like the Vietnam downtown. The highways, they have these extremely dangerous truck drivers who are trying to make deadlines, so they're just always passing each other and always kind of just making it past. So I immediately got up and like with like the adrenaline rush, like grabbed my motorcycle and dragged it across because it was all messed up. I dragged it across the highway to the side of the road. I like immediately kind of like got dizzy and kind of just fell on the side of the road. And I was like, what am I doing here? I'm so dumb. Like this was so dangerous. And I'm like, I'm definitely messed up. Like this doesn't feel right. And out of nowhere, like all of these people from like that village, they kind of just were people who lived on the side of the highway, all just came out and they brought a stool out and they all started fussing over me, and none of them spoke English, and I only spoke like, I only knew how to say like hello and thank you in Vietnamese. So like they're all just like rubbing Tiger Balm on like the sore parts of my body, which I think like my girlfriend's Chinese, she's like, of course they were. I mean like that's what every Asian mom would do. Is like rub Tiger Balm all over all the bruised parts. And I was like, yeah, it's right here. And they were rubbing it on. And that's when I got the video. I was like, I think I just broke something. Like I broke my like clavicle or something here. I can't move my arm and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm hours from anywhere where anyone speaks English. And this was in 2017. So even that northern loop was very, like not a lot of people did it, not a lot of foreigners. So like I knew that I wouldn't see an English speaking person for days. I was like, what am I gonna do? So, I mean, I'll cut the story short, but I ended up in like this like very communist style hospital in the north. It was a very open concept. Like they gave me, I found a way to find someone, like he was like he was the guy who manages the money of the hospital, how he explained it. So he's kind of like the accountant. And he actually spoke a couple words of English. He's like, where are you from? You're broken. This is broken. Okay, I'll take you. And he kind of helped me out in like the moment of darkness when I actually gave up from being in the hospital for like 2 hours and no one could help me. And there was a dog in the x-ray room. Like a dog wandered into the x-ray room. Like that was like the conditions I was working with. Like it was such an isolated place.
When you gave up, had you decided then that you were gonna go home?
Right. So I'm broken shouldered. I get the x-ray back. I'm like, all right, fully broken shoulder, and I don't know, they don't know what to tell me because they can't really translate it. We didn't have Google Translate on any of our phones, so we couldn't, and even so it wouldn't explain it. I took that, the guy was like, you stay with me, come with me. And so I stayed at this random guy's family's house. I slept in his bed, and he wouldn't let me not sleep in his bed. And him and his wife and his kid slept in this pull-out thing. They gave me a beer and they had internet, and so I accessed it, sent the photo off to a couple of my doctor friends who could actually tell me in a detail what is going on with my broken clavicle, and they're like, yeah man, you're stuck for 6 weeks. You can't move, don't ride a motorcycle, don't go anywhere, just stay there. And I'm in a place no one speaks English, and except for this one guy, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna sit around here in pain for 6 weeks? And I thought, I just gotta keep going. I just have to grin and bear it and keep riding around this loop. I came here, I made this decision, I've changed my life for this, I'm gonna keep riding. So the next day, so sore, I could move my hand a bit like this, I could go like that. I just got him to take me back to the motorcycle. We found it on the side of the road. I was able to kind of fix it up at a shop, and off I went. He was like, "Don't go!" I was like, "I have to go. I can't explain to you, but I just can't stay here."
This is like something out of a movie. I can't believe you're telling me all of this.
It was crazy. But there was no other choice. It was so much pain, no matter what. Anyone with a broken clavicle knows that just sleeping, anything you do hurts. And I thought, if I'm gonna just sit around, I might as well be sitting on a motorcycle. I just cannot get hit again.
But what about the risk that you would get hit again? How did you get over that?
I know.
How did you make sense of it?
It was any doctor and anyone watching this is gonna be like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it was, but it was just a gamble I took because I thought I wanted it, and I was there, and I wanted this my entire life, and I know everyone's waiting for me to be like, well, I'm just gonna sit around and wait. And I was like, no, I can do this. I just need to be really careful. I need to watch myself. I need to drive at half the speed, and I can make it through the next 3 or 4 days around this northern mountain pass. Very bumpy, but I can make it back to Hanoi, where I'll actually rest for a week.
Right.
And so I did it. It's almost like when you're in the middle of something, you almost hit the end point, and you just get hit by the worst situation, but you're like, I just gotta finish, just let me finish.
Right.
So that was the feeling. I did it, I recovered in Hanoi, and then I continued to ride for the next 8 months with a very sore shoulder. Yeah.
It's wild.
People like to watch it. They definitely weren't living vicariously that time.
No, not.
They were definitely like, yes, I'm so glad I didn't do something like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Until you just sort of, from my experience, I think I remember that crash, but I think I blocked it out of my head. I went back to my own life, and then when I came back up for air, it's like, holy crap, Ben is a big deal. He's a big deal in this field now, and you've got an entire portfolio to speak for it.
I wouldn't say that I'm a big deal. I don't think
you were. I tried to use your work last year for one of my clients. Remember that?
Well, thank you.
Anyways.
I work really hard, and I would say these things. I would say that I've improved enormously from when I began. I think and I think a lot of people can take something out of this interview is the reason why I improved so quickly, and I actually became kind of a decent photographer, is not because I'm good or anything or I know what I'm doing. It's because I just immersed myself completely. And I saved up enough to take that jump and make that risk and do it at the max level on a motorcycle by myself. I have no other distractions. It's just me, my motorcycle, and my camera taking the most authentic photos I possibly can find.
Right.
And so by the time I was done, I felt like I could kind of compete with the big photographers out there, and like I can kind of hold a candle to it now. But I still have so much to learn.
Right. You're humble. I appreciate that. That's why we get along. Because I'm not. Just kidding. Would you recommend to anybody watching this who might be thinking they're on the verge of taking a leap of faith to completely surround themselves and set themselves up on a new path? I think. Would you recommend sort of just jumping right in?
Yes. Yeah, totally. I think you've had this experience as well, is that you won't know. There's some people out there, and I mean, my sister included, and she's very much a planner, my older of the two younger sisters I have. And she spends so much time, I've already talked about her earlier in this interview, is she spends so much time thinking about things and over planning it. And the truth is, I think the more successful people out there are the ones who dive in without planning too much. I mean, have some basic rules and basic plan. I mean, I had to plan to a certain extent. I needed to have the right equipment when I left my last life into the new career. I had to have a decent amount of savings that I'd saved up. Mm-hmm. So I have that cushion. I'm able to not make money for 6 months. Like, I had to be ready for that, to be completely on a budget, very tight, and just jump in and don't think too much about it, because time is ticking. Time is valuable.
Right.
I think any entrepreneur can also attest to that. Is that your time is money. Like, you don't have enough hours in the day to cover everything that you want to do. So that applies to life in general. Every moment that you're out there building somebody else's dream or doing a job that you really don't like is another hour lost that you could be doing something that you truly love.
I mean, I just made a story about this earlier today. We had filmed one episode of Behind the Grind, and then we took a 3-week break. Initially because the video team was away for the Vancouver International Film Festival. And then I took the opportunity to focus on other aspects of Behind the Grind. But also, one of the side effects of that was I suddenly had way too much time to myself in my own thoughts. And I found myself being my own worst critic. And I don't know. So one of the things that I really liked about getting back into filming, especially like sitting here with you having this conversation, is like immediately it reminded me of why I wanted to do this in the first place. And then I think about like, okay, why is it that I have such a strong inner critic? I don't even want to like compare mine to yours. I don't think like that's really going to help us get anywhere. But I think for me, it's like when I criticize myself, it's somewhere inside, like a version of me is trying to protect myself from failure or something. But then I think about that on its own. I'm like, so what if I fail? Like, would you rather fail, and would you rather have taken a chance and fail and go on to fail, or like not try anything at all? I know it's very cliche. But
You're so right about that, though. Like, that's such a good point. So many people are afraid to fail that they just don't do anything at all, and that's the biggest failure. I mean, Michael Scott said it first through Wayne Gretzky.
Right.
Every shot that you don't take, what is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Right.
And yeah, Michael Scott, Wayne Gretzky. I mean, that's exactly true. I know that's the kind of person that you are as well, is that you do think a lot about things and you do plan things to a T. And even when we're setting this up, I'm like, oh man, this is kind of nice. She's a little organized and everything. And it's extremely useful in the business world. It's like one of the main things, and it's one of my biggest weaknesses, is not being organized enough. But I think there's a good balance that you can find, is that some people over-plan things and they never take that leap, and they'll miss their chance. the van life girl is probably a really good example of that. She struck while the iron was hot. If she was somebody who planned too much or waited too much, she'd be overthinking things, and she may have missed that boat, and that boat would have sailed. That van would have driven off in the sunset without her. So I think that's such a great point that you'd bring up, is that, yeah, you can get too much into your head, you can be too self-aware, and often the most successful people that are out there are the ones who are kind of blissfully unaware of how dorky they are.
Right.
You know, like they're just doing their thing and they don't give a crap about anyone else.
Or they learn how to turn it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, or they do something and they suck at it and they fail. And like, that's the greatest thing. If you're failing at something, that's such a glorious moment of failure, and you have to wallow in it. You have to learn from it. You just fucked up. And like, are you going to bleep that one out? I can swear.
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see what like
What they say?
iTunes' policies are.
I think it's warranted. But yeah, I think screwing up is so important, is that if you're not screwing up, it means that you're not taking any risk. It means you're not growing. Right. The cushy life is not a life well lived. You need to go out there and make mistakes in order to learn.
If there's one thing that I've really appreciated about entrepreneurship and my experience in this, is that it's really been a catalyst for revealing to me what my greatest fears and greatest shortcomings are. And I'm not telling everybody here to, identify your weaknesses and fix them. That's not where I'm getting at this. But I think the people who I truly admire are those who are aware of what they're good at and what they're not. They're aware of like what certain propensities they might have as an individual. And then they position themselves on a path that A, they're passionate about, and B, it's a path that's aligned with their core values. And like, to them, that path feels right.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, like, you learn as you get older too. I think, speaking about, how the crowd that we are kind of involved, like the entrepreneurial crowd, like the tech startups and everything, it's all people under 40, like, they're still learning about their weaknesses and like what they're good at, what they suck at. And then that's something that I think experience can really speak to. That somebody around 40, over 40, in their 50s, 60s, are just so efficient at that point. They're not wasting their time anymore. They'll be like, yeah, well, I have a guy for this, I have a guy for that, I have a girl for that, I have a girl for that, and they can delegate tasks like no other, like somebody with proper experience in any field.
Right.
Someone who's still young, they're still trying to do everything, and you got to do it to learn that you suck at it, and then you need to learn to stop wasting your time with it.
Right. What advice would you have for your former self, your younger self?
Begin it today. Start now. Like, I feel like I started way too late. Like, it was the right time, it was the perfect timing, and it made me who I am right now, and it made me appreciate where I am. But I wish I had started earlier. I think everyone who finds their passion wish they had started earlier. But that's the only advice. I mean, also self-care is really important too. Like, I work myself to the bone along with everyone else, and I wish that I had paced myself more. But I learned what I learned, so it's good.
I mean, I hear you and I completely understand, but part of this is also growing up, and what person in their early 20s doesn't care what everybody else thinks. Maybe like Gen Z, less and less. They seem to be a lot more aware and mature than we were.
Yeah, I think as the generations get down, they become more they become more aware of their surroundings.
Or do you think their expectations become more realistic?
I think Gen Z is still going to have to learn the same lessons that everyone has to learn, which is the ones we've been talking about already. But I think Gen Z also rejects a lot of things that we had to experience, like Instagram. And
I feel like this episode has been so packed with truth bombs and really good advice. Well, I guess I have a couple more questions for you. One being, if you could give advice to your younger self, the version of you in your early 20s, let's say, what would you say?
I would say beginning now. Like, I think that's the theme of my my episode of this is like, begin it now. There's actually a really good quote you might be able to attach to it, and it's just so epic, like how cool it is.
Is it the Nike quote?
No, yeah, do it. No. It's like this old quote, and people can't really attach it to a certain writer because it's a little bit of a mysterious quote. And we'll probably attach it or something, but it's basically begin it now because everything that you do, everything that will come to pass will happen once you begin it. You can't imagine all of the good things and the positive things that come your way until you begin the task that you wanted. And so I think that's the advice I would give myself from when I was in my early 20s is, why aren't you doing this now? Why aren't you starting this earlier? Because time is ticking, and I think all the Gen Zs out there should be aware of that as well. We were talking about it earlier. It's like they need to make the mistakes that they're going to be making, but they need to make them sooner, right? They need to learn those lessons because the Gen Z, just like the millennial generation and the Gen Xers before that,
I feel like millennials, we were so idealistic and we had all these high expectations, and ultimately that just screwed us over because it made us so hesitant to take any risks.
There's a lot of pressure on a lot of young people. I think every young person goes through that same feeling.
Right.
I mean, the difference between what I see right now between the Gen Xers and so Gen Z, like the newest generation coming up, and us millennials who are now reaching, our 30s, coming into a full adulting, is I think they've been bombarded with with the crap of all the 2000s, all the social media, all the Instagram. They've been faked the F out. Like everything is fake in their world, and they grew up in it.
Right.
They grew up in social media. Facebook has always been present for them, and Instagram now is TikTok.
For millennials, you mean, or Gen Z?
Gen Z. I mean, the millennials, at least, they were able to experience the reality before it hit the world. But the Gen Zs were born in it and were raised in it.
For sure, different challenges. I think about a generation basically being shaped by its relationship with technology and various impactful political events that have happened in their coming of age. And for us, we remember the financial crisis of '08. Maybe, seeing our own parents' job security being at risk. I know for me, that's one of the defining moments of my life, where might not have even recognized it then, but like I knew that I just didn't want to be working for other people. And I think like a lot of people in our generation maybe had that attitude.
Yeah.
Coming out of school.
I never even thought about it. That's a very valuable lesson that a lot of us learned as we saw, we were still quite young, but at least we remember it.
Right.
What happened to everyone. But
essentially that meant like a lot of us were doing things out of fear, which I don't know clearly from your story, that doing something out of fear sort of just holds you back from what you actually want to be doing in life.
Yeah.
Gen Z did not have to grow up during the financial crisis, but they have a new set of challenges.
I think their bullshit meter is way more sensitive than ours. Like they can just smell that, they can smell the augmented fake reality that the internet has created for our world way more than anyone else. Like they grew up in a world of bullshit surrounding them. So they know, like all of the marketing aimed towards Gen Z and the marketing that they create themselves in their own stories, their own things that they share is all just like, it's very real. It's very raw. It's very ugly. Like in the very real sense. And because they want that refreshing feel of realness, they're starving for reality. Whereas we kind of grew up in the reality and we kind of had the ugly world before the beautiful world of Instagram and Facebook. And so, we can take it or leave it. But it seems like Gen Z they are extremely sensitive to it. They can smell the bull crap from a mile away. And so stuff geared towards them and their own lives is just way more rooted in that hunger for reality. So I have a lot of respect for Gen Zs, man. Like, it's got to be tough, like, coming up in that world.
Right.
So, Yeah.
Do you feel like you're in a place to be giving advice to Gen Z? I was gonna ask you, like, what advice would you give to someone younger, but maybe not someone younger, but anybody watching this right now who might be on the verge of taking a leap of faith? And I think you sort of answered that with your answer to the advice that you would give the younger version of yourself.
Yeah, I'd reiterate, it's just begin it now and get ready to make some mistakes, and just take on those mistakes wholeheartedly and take them on with courage and with zeal, and just go at it.
And we as a society need to be more forgiving of mistakes and more celebratory of people taking risks and for it not panning out. We have such an expectation for perfection that I think we all need a reality check, and we need to tone it down.
Yeah, exactly. No one does it right. No one knows what they're doing in the world. Everyone is making mistakes. That's a stark reality that a lot of people learn, and I'm sure the Gen Zers are learning it now, is that when you come into adulthood, you realize that no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah, which is why they prefer apps like Snapchat over Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, because it's real. And people are screwing up right, left, and center, and it's just so refreshing to know that no one really knows what they're doing, and you just need to find the people who do and surround yourself with those people and focus on what you're good at.
So on that note, no one really knows what they're doing. So get out there and just start making mistakes.
Yeah.
You've heard it from Ben Glassco. Thank you so much for joining me for this. This is a really great conversation.
It was fun.
From my perspective.
I enjoyed the beer. It was good. And it's just lovely talking to you. You're just such a positive light, and I love that you're celebrating people in this community and you're bringing them together to kind of share their stories, be real, talk about the struggles, and help people out there who are watching realize that they can do it too, and they can make a difference. So it's amazing.
Thank you. Aww,
Put her there, pal. Is that what we do at the end of interviews?
This is not going to be on camera. That's it for episode 2. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode. As always, hit the subscribe button, follow us on social media. Thank you to Ben Glassco, our guest today. If you want to follow along his everyday shenanigans and all the wild, crazy travels that he goes on, check out his Instagram and check out his website. We are going to be providing everything you need to know in the links in the description box below. And thank you to you, the viewers, the listeners. You are the whole reason why this thing is a thing. So I'll see you guys next time.